This gaming PC is back here in my shop because after last week when we upgraded this RTX 5090, our customer decided that his i9-9900K was a big enough bottleneck to warrant a brand new build. So let's disconnect and steal this RTX 5090 so we can build a system worthy of it. So to make that happen, let's go ahead and prep our motherboard, which I always like doing on the box itself, as it's a great non-conductive work surface to go ahead and install things like your CPU. In our case, we have the best CPU for gaming and productivity, the AMD Ryzen 9 9950X 3D, which we're pairing up with 64 gigabytes of DDR5 and a blazing fast 4 terabyte PCIe Gen 5 SSD, which can reach read speeds over 14,000 megabytes per second. No bottlenecks here. Then to finish prepping our motherboard, a little pro tip I always recommend is that if your cooler requires you to remove the stock mounting hardware and install their own, take care of that now. It'll save you a headache later. So with our motherboard prepped, let's get it installed in one of the most beautiful cases on the market, the Haven HS 420. So with our motherboard now in our case, it's time for my favorite pro tip, pre-wiring, where you plug in all your front panel headers ahead of time, followed by any cable extensions or modular power supply cables that need to go into the motherboard. Because if we just run those back now and plug them into our power supply, we can slide this into place and have 90% of the wiring work complete before we have any bulky components in the way. Like our vertical GPU bracket, which if we add, blocks off the ability to install any of those front panel headers. And speaking of bulky components, let's pull out these brackets where we can pre-install our fans before slotting them into place to make installation easier. And speaking of fans, because I know I'm going to get a lot of questions on the layout here, how we have things set up is we have 340mm reverse blade fans on that back wall set as intake. The exact same setup down here below as intake as well. Then a 120mm in the very bottom also as intake. Then for exhaust, we're going to have this 120mm in the rear, as well as our radiator, which we might as well install now because that's got another 320mm fan set as exhaust. And for those curious, this is the Lanley Hydro Shift 2 LCD, which has a really cool design as it actually tucks away all the tubing behind the radiator to create this super clean look. And I think that's brilliant. So with our cooler good to go, the last thing to install is our GPU, which we can go ahead and slot into place. And then for power, I'm gonna do something a little controversial and route the cable around the GPU to create these super straight lines within the build. So with that last cable plugged in, let's go ahead and fire the system up, where we'll see that the system posts right to the BIOS with our CPU, RAM, and storage showing right up. So all we gotta do now is take our installation media, plug that in, and install Windows. And with Windows now installed, our customer finally has a system worthy of his 5090. So let's get this rebuilt gaming PC over to our customer.